The house I sold. My name is Daniel, and the day I found my 11-year-old grandson alone in a dark house, strapped into a wheelchair that hadn't been moved in 6 hours, was the day I stopped being a soft touch. I want to tell you that story from the beginning because if I just tell you the ending, that I sold my son's house out from under him while he was sipping a piña colada in the Caribbean, you'll think I'm a cruel old man. I'm not. I'm a father who ran out of patience and a grandfather who ran out of forgiveness. There's a difference, and by the end of this you'll understand it. The boy nobody wanted to inconvenience themselves for. My grandson's name is Eli. He was born with cerebral palsy, the kind that took his ability to walk but left his mind sharp as a blade. He reads at a level 3 grades above his age. He remembers the name of every dog he's ever met. He laughs at his own jokes before he even finishes telling them, which is the most endearing thing I have ever witnessed in 71 years of living. His parents are my son Ryan and his wife Vanessa. I raised Ryan to be better than what he became, though I suppose every disappointed father says that. Ryan was a sweet boy, once sensitive, the kind of kid who cried when he stepped on ants. Somewhere between college and marrying Vanessa, that sensitivity calcified into something else. Not cruelty exactly, convenience. Ryan became a man who did whatever caused him the least friction. And Vanessa, who I'll be honest and say I never much cared for, was an expert at removing friction from her own life by transferring it onto other people. Eli became the friction they wanted removed. It started small. They'd skip his physical therapy appointments because it was raining or traffic was bad. They'd leave him with sitters who didn't know how to operate his lift, or worse, didn't bother learning. Twice I got calls from Eli's school because nobody had picked him up. Ryan thought Vanessa had it. Vanessa thought Ryan had it. And my grandson sat in the front office in his chair for 2 hours, watching the clock, telling the secretary it was fine. He didn't mind. Could she maybe find him a book to read while he waited? An 11-year-old boy, reassuring the adults around him that his own neglect was fine. That should have been my first real warning. I told myself it was carelessness, not malice. I was wrong, but I wanted to be wrong in that particular way, because the alternative was accepting that my son had become someone who could look at his own child and see an errand he kept forgetting to run. The cruise. Here is where the story actually starts, the part you came for. 6 weeks ago, Ryan called me on a Tuesday evening, breezy as anything, and told me that he and Vanessa had booked a 7-day Caribbean cruise. Their anniversary, he said. They needed it, he said. Things had been stressful, he said, and didn't I always say marriages need tending? I did say that. I stand by it. What I did not say, what I would never say, was that marriages should be tended to by outsourcing a disabled child to whoever happened to be standing nearby. "Who's got Eli?" I asked. There was a pause, not a long one, just long enough for me to feel my stomach drop before he even answered. "We were hoping you could take him, Dad." "For a week." "It's really not that bad, he's easy, you know that. He just needs his morning routine and his afternoon stretches and someone to help him with the lift getting in and out of bed. And honestly, he can do most of it himself. He's really independent for." "Ryan," I cut him off, "when do you leave?" "Thursday." 2 days. 2 days notice for a 7-day commitment involving medical equipment I had never operated, medication schedules I didn't have memorized, a lift mechanism I'd only ever watched Vanessa use once badly, while she scrolled her phone with her other hand. I said yes. Of course I said yes. You don't leave a disabled 11-year-old boy in the lurch to prove a point to his idiot parents. I drove over Wednesday night. Had Vanessa show me the routine in a rushed, irritated 15 minutes like she was training a temp worker she resented having to onboard. And Thursday morning, I watched my son and his wife roll 2 enormous suitcases out to a rideshare, laughing about excursion packages. while Eli sat in the doorway of his room and watched them go without saying a word. I asked him if he was okay. He said they always look happy when they leave. 11 years old. He'd already cataloged it. He'd already noticed the specific quality of his parents' happiness, that it bloomed brightest in the moment of departure from him. I did not sleep well that week, not because caring for Eli was hard, though it was, in the ways that caring for anyone with complex needs is hard when you're 71 and your knees aren't what they were. I didn't sleep because every night I lay awake doing math, adding up the missed appointments, the forgotten sitters, the birthday party 2 years back that they'd left early from because Eli's chair got stuck on a curb, and it was embarrassing, Ryan's word, not mine. I was adding up a pattern I had refused to see as a pattern, because patterns require you to admit something is broken, and broken things require you to actually do something about them. By day 4 of that cruise, I had made a decision. What I knew that they didn't. Here's the part where I have to backtrack and tell you something important. I owned that house. Not owned in the sentimental sense fathers sometimes mean when their kids buy property. I mean I held the deed. 4 years earlier, when Ryan and Vanessa were drowning in rent and Eli's medical bills were stacking up faster than Ryan's salary could cover, I bought them a house outright. Paid cash. Put it in my name, with the understanding, verbal, generous, foolish, that I'd transfer the title to them once they'd stabilized financially, and I could see they were handling the responsibility of homeownership like adults. They never asked me to transfer it. I never brought it up either. 4 years passed. They lived in that house like it was theirs because, in every functional sense, it was. They painted the nursery, then Eli's big boy room, then his accessible bedroom with the wider door frames I'd paid to have installed. They hosted Thanksgivings there. It had their furniture, their photos on the walls, their life inside it. But the deed had my name on it. Daniel, not Ryan, not Vanessa. I want to be honest with you about something. I hadn't been holding onto that fact as a weapon. It genuinely wasn't in my mind as leverage. It was just a loose end I'd never tied off, the kind of thing you mean to handle eventually, and then 11 years go by. But sitting in Eli's room on the 4th night of that cruise, listening to him breathe evenly in his sleep after I'd helped him through his stretches, because his own parents couldn't be bothered to reschedule a vacation, that loose end stopped feeling loose. It felt like the only thread I had left to pull. The decision. I called my lawyer, an old friend named Marcus who has handled my affairs for 2 decades and has the particular talent of never once judging me for the strange things I ask him to do. I told him what I wanted. He asked me if I was sure. I told him I had never been more sure of anything. Friday morning, while Ryan and Vanessa were presumably on a beach somewhere not thinking about their son at all, I listed the house. I didn't do it out of spite alone, though I won't pretend spite wasn't in the mix. I'm human, and watching your son become someone who treats his disabled child like inconvenient luggage does something ugly to your heart. But mostly, I did it because I realized, with a clarity that felt almost peaceful, that I had spent 4 years subsidizing a lifestyle that had made my son and his wife comfortable enough to become careless. I had removed the friction from their lives, the same way they removed it from theirs, by dumping it onto an 11-year-old boy who apologized for existing. If they wanted a life with no friction, I decided, they could go build one without my money holding it up. The house sold in 9 days to a young family who fell in love with the accessible bedroom I had built. Marcus told me later the wife actually cried during the walkthrough because her own son used a chair, and she'd never seen a home already set up for one. That detail undid something in me, hearing it. It felt like the universe correcting a mistake, handing that room to a family who would actually use its purpose the way it was intended. I used part of the proceeds, money that was, again, legally and entirely mine, to do 3 things. I put a large sum into a trust for Eli that neither Ryan nor Vanessa could touch. I bought a modest but genuinely accessible condo, One level, wide doorways, roll-in shower, 5 minutes from my own house. And I quietly began the process, with Marcus's help, of filing for formal guardianship rights regarding Eli's medical and educational decisions. Not full custody. I want to be clear. I wasn't trying to steal my grandson from his parents. I was trying to make sure that if they ever again decided a cruise mattered more than their son's routine, there would be a legal structure ensuring Eli was never again left as an afterthought. The return. They landed on a Thursday. I know because Ryan called me from the airport, and I could hear it in his voice before he even said the words, that particular pitch of a man whose comfortable life has just developed a crack he can't identify yet. Dad, we're at the house and there are strangers here. There's a moving truck. What is going on? I sold the house, Ryan. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight to it, that you can feel pressing against your eardrum. You what? You can't just, that's our house. It's not actually. Check the deed. It's always had my name on it. Dad, that's insane. We've lived there for 4 years, our stuff is. Your stuff is in a storage unit I paid for, address forwarded to your email. Your son is at my place. He's fine. He's better than fine, actually. He's been eating well and doing his stretches on schedule, and he beat me at chess twice, which I suspect he let happen out of pity because he's a kind boy despite everything. You can't do this. I already did it. I want to tell you I felt triumphant in that moment. I didn't. I felt tired and a little sick, the way you feel after ripping off a bandage you've let sit too long, necessary, overdue, and still painful in a way you weren't quite braced for. The collapse. What happened over the following weeks wasn't a single dramatic implosion. It was slower than that, and somehow more damning for being slow. Ryan and Vanessa had to move into a rental, a 2-bedroom apartment with none of the accessibility modifications Eli needed, because it turned out, and this was the detail that finally broke something loose in my son's understanding of his own life. They had almost no savings. 4 years of living in a house with no mortgage had not translated into 4 years of financial discipline. It had translated into a boat they didn't need, 2 overseas trips a year, a car lease. Vanessa insisted on that cost more monthly than most people's rent. Without that house quietly absorbing what would have been their biggest expense, their spending patterns were suddenly, brutally visible for what they were. A household living at the very edge of a comfort they hadn't actually earned. Vanessa's mother, who had never liked me and made that clear at every family gathering for a decade, called me screaming that I'd destroyed her daughter's life. I told her calmly that I'd sold a house I owned, and that whatever came apart afterward had been coming apart quietly for years. I had simply stopped paying to keep it glued together. The marriage didn't survive the pressure. I want to say that gently, because divorce is a genuine tragedy regardless of how I felt about either party involved in this one, and I take no joy in it. But I also can't pretend I was surprised. Ryan and Vanessa had built a partnership around comfort and convenience, and the moment both were stripped away, they discovered they had very little else holding them together. The fights, when Ryan told me about them in the raw, unguarded way people talk when their world is falling apart around them, were always about the same thing underneath: whose fault it was, who should have seen it coming, who should apologize first. Never once in any account Ryan gave me did either of them ask the only question that actually mattered. Not, how did we lose the house, but how did we become people who left our son alone for a cruise? They separated 4 months after they got back from that cruise. Ryan moved into a small apartment. Vanessa moved back in with her mother. Neither of them, notably, moved anywhere near the accessible condo where Eli now permanently lives with me. Eli, here's what I actually want you to know. Underneath all the mechanics of deeds and divorces and financial collapse, Eli is happy. He has his own room with a bathroom he can actually use without help. He goes to physical therapy every single week because I put it on a calendar with an alarm, and I have never once, not one single time, let traffic or rain become a reason to skip it. He has a dog now, a patient old golden retriever named Waffles who sleeps beside his bed and doesn't care that Eli can't run to throw the ball, because Eli figured out how to launch it from his chair with impressive accuracy. He still sees his parents. I made sure of that because whatever I think of the choices Ryan and Vanessa made, Eli loves them. And I would never be the kind of grandfather who uses a child as ammunition in a war against his own parents. Ryan visits every Sunday. He's different now, quieter, more careful, the kind of attentive that arrives late but arrives genuinely. Vanessa visits less, though when she does, I notice she actually gets down on the floor to talk to Eli at eye level now, something I never once saw her do in the 4 years prior. I don't know if either of them has truly understood, yet what they lost that week they were on a cruise ship somewhere in the Caribbean, laughing over cocktails, while their son sat quietly and told a school secretary he didn't mind waiting. I don't know if people like that ever fully understand it, or if the understanding arrives only in fragments at inconvenient times for the rest of their lives. What I know is this: I am 71 years old and I sold a house that took 4 years of a young family's comfortable life apart at the seams. I do not regret it. Some inheritances aren't houses or money. Sometimes the only inheritance you can leave your grandchild is proof that somebody somewhere was finally willing to be the friction, the person who refused to make things easy, so that he could never again be made to feel like something easily left behind. Eli asked me once, months after all of it, why I sold the house. I told him the truth, in words small enough for an 11-year-old to hold. Because you're not an inconvenience, Eli. You never were. And I needed your parents to finally understand that, even if it cost them everything they thought mattered. He thought about that for a while, the way he thinks about everything, carefully and completely. That's a lot to lose, he said, just to prove something to 2 people. It wasn't to prove something to them, I told him. It was to prove something to you, so you'd never spend one more day of your life thinking you had to earn the right to be picked up on time. He didn't say anything else. He just reached over in that quiet way he has and rested his hand on mine. And in that small, unremarkable gesture, I felt the entire cost of that house, every dollar, every furious phone call, every relative who thinks I'm a monster, settle into something that finally felt like it had been worth it.